What is hypnosis? Hi, I'm Dan Ross from the Silicon Valley Hypnosis Center, and in this video I'm going to talk today about what hypnosis is, what it isn't, what you might expect from a hypnosis session, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of the other tools that I use because I see people for a whole bunch of different things, and people can come into the office for things like stress reduction, anxiety reduction, releasing trauma, weight loss, working on some kind of medical issue that they have seen a whole bunch of doctors for, and they've been referred out to me to work on the sort of mind part of the mind-body connection. So on top of hypnosis, there's a whole bunch of other tools that I use with people because it's kind of like if you're building a house, that when you build a house that you know, when you lay the foundation, there's certain tools that you might use. There might be a cement mixer, there might be shovels and things to kind of move the concrete around. And then when you're framing the walls, you might use a hammer, and that's the right tool for the job. And then when you're getting, you know, everything's almost all together and you're doing the finishing work, you might be putting the little switch over the light switch plate, and you need a screwdriver for that. So we obviously want to use the right tool for the right job. So I'll talk about hypnosis in just a moment, but for now, I want to talk about a couple of other tools that I use first. One is a tool called Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is kind of a mouthful. It's otherwise known as NLP, and it's actually how I got into all this because I watched Tony Robbins. Most people know who Tony Robbins is, the famous motivational speaker. I watched him take a woman who had a lifelong phobia of something and had been to all sorts of different therapists and things like that and had not been able to solve the problem. And so he brought her up on stage and he was working with her to kind of resolve this problem, and it took about 15 minutes. And in 15 minutes, he'd wiped out her lifelong phobia. And so I saw that and I'm like, wow, that's amazing how that works. Because up until the point where those set of tools that he used came along, it usually took about 7 years on average for somebody doing talk therapy to resolve a phobia. So what I found out is he was using this set of tools called Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And what it is kind of like understanding the software of your mind. And we all have the same hardware, so we all have the same brain structure. We all have a cerebellum, we have a cerebrum, we have a brainstem, we have an amygdala, we have all those physical structures in our mind. And yet, it's how our minds are programmed that makes the difference. So, every problem that somebody has a structure of something that they're doing in their mind or that they're feeling in their body. And it's often these sequence of things that they do. So, if you think about somebody that has like a snake phobia, when they see a snake, someone who has the phobia might imagine a giant picture of a snake in their mind, and or maybe coming and biting them or something like that. So they're playing that kind of movie that of course might cause somebody to feel some kind of stress when thinking about a snake, where somebody who doesn't have a snake phobia might think of a snake as being small and far away, right? And that's kind of how I see it in my mind. I encounter snakes here and there when I'm out hiking, and you know, I usually don't think of them. I don't have, other than maybe some surprise, that it's not this sort of phobic reaction which people have. So Neuro-Linguistic Programming found that there's a difference between, again, there's a structure, there's a set of sequences of what you see, hear, and feel in your mind that cause the problem, and then the solution is something else that you see, hear, and feel in your mind. So it's working with the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. Often people are totally unconscious of what's going on, so one of the first things we do if somebody comes in for something like stress or anxiety is find out what they're actually doing in their mind. And so think of it a little bit like updating the software, right? Again, there's nothing wrong with you or basically your hardware with your brain. It's just what you're doing in your mind. The way you're processing things is probably contributing to or causing the problem. And so if you think about your phone or about your laptop computer or your desktop computer, whatever it is you have, that often you have to update that software. And depending on which kind of computer or phone you have, you may be aware of it or not. I know on mine it pops up and says, do you want to update your operating system, right? And so the same is true for us, that, you know, often we're running these programs that started a long time ago and we didn't actually design those deliberately. And so with Neuro-Linguistic Programming, with NLP, we will find out some of those programs that are working maybe a little bit like a virus in your mind that are creating some problems. You don't even know how they got there, but we want to kind of take them out and put in some more useful programming. So that's NLP, that's one of the tools that I use. Almost always when we're doing work with anxiety or things like that, that's one of the tools that I use along with hypnosis. Another set of tools is mindfulness. And like NLP, there's a whole bunch of evidence and scientific studies and stuff that show the effectiveness of mindfulness. And really mindfulness is just kind of being aware and being present to what's happening rather than having some thought or judgment about it. So it's sort of this feeling awareness along with what we do in NLP is the awareness of what's actually happening in the mind. But oftentimes if someone's having spinning thoughts, those thoughts are happening over and over and over. What's happening is you're kind of up in your head, you're processing things visually or auditorily, and you're not aware of the feelings in your body. And part of this is more than just sort of bringing awareness to it. It's actually something that can help sort of calm the nervous system. And again, there's all sorts of studies that show that mindfulness and meditation can really help people make long-term changes. It is a practice, it's not sort of a one-time thing. And again, we want to use every tool in the toolbox. We often use that as part of a weight loss program because, part of what happens with some people that get to where they are, where they need to lose the weight, is they have not, they've kind of lost track of how things feel in their body. And so this is sort of rebuilding that connection that may have been lost. So then let's talk about hypnosis. So what is hypnosis? Well, there's all sorts of definitions out there, and if you ask 10 different hypnotists, you get 10 different answers. But we tend to agree on a couple of things in that it's a state of focused attention. And it's actually not sleep, because sometimes people think it's that, but it's really not that. It's the state of focused attention where you're following along with the suggestions given to you. So if you think about what a hypnosis session might look like, and I'll talk more about how that works in the end, but basically it's sitting in the chair, often closing your eyes, and then I'm giving you a series of suggestions that your unconscious mind will be following along with. And so it's having these suggestions that you're in a more open and receptive state. So if you think about, again, the definition I just used, focused attention following along with suggestion. The good news is you've already done that in your life. If you think about a great movie, if you ever watched a great movie where you got so drawn into the story that you kind of may have forgotten which theater you were in, you might have forgotten who you were with, you might have gotten so focused you lost track of time. I know for me, once I was in the theater and when the movie started, I'm like, should I go to the bathroom? I think I may have to go. And then I got so drawn in that when the movie was over, I'm like, oh yeah, wow, I really need to go. And I'd forgotten about it the whole time. So basically, we are in these naturally occurring hypnotic states all the time. And oftentimes the problem that somebody comes in with is that they're already in kind of a trance state. So they come home after a hard day from work and they're in the refrigerator and eating something and they don't even know how they got there. So again, you're already doing it. We're going to show you how to do it better. So hypnosis is, again, that state of focusing your attention, following along with suggestion. Another good definition for it is the bypassing what we call the critical factor of the mind, which is when we become adults, essentially, often it starts a little bit younger, but we have this ability to critically evaluate things that young children don't have. So up until about the age of 7, the brain waves for a child are very much like you might experience in hypnosis, which is your mind is wide open to things that happen. And a great example of this is if you ask a 4 or 5-year-old if they believe in Santa Claus, assuming they've been told about Santa Claus, that they believe, right? And yet, if you find an adult who's never heard of Santa Claus and you say, guess what? On Christmas Eve, there's this guy who's going to come to all the houses of the world and is going to bring presents to the children if they've been good. And an adult with a critical factor will go, well, wait a minute, there's got to be, 3-4 billion kids in the world. How does he get to all those houses in one night? And what actually keeps the sleigh up? And what powers Rudolph's nose? And so we have that ability to analyze things. That is the critical factor. And so in hypnosis, we bypass that because, again, if you just ask a young child if you believe in Santa Claus, you just tell them that story like, yeah, he's going to come bring your presents. They'll be, yeah, Santa Claus, right? So this is why hypnosis works, is because we're bypassing that critical factor, allowing those suggestions to go in. Now, just a couple pieces here that will help sort of address some common questions people have about hypnosis. And the first one is that, again, hypnosis isn't sleep. Rather than that, it's actually sort of a heightening of awareness. The mind is active and alert the entire time, and you will hear every word I say. You would remember about as much as you would from any normal conversation. So, if somebody comes in and they have an hour-long session, it would be pretty difficult, if not impossible, for somebody to repeat back exactly every word that I said in order. And so there would be these times where awareness kind of comes and goes. The next one is there's no particular feeling to hypnosis. So there's no specific feeling that says, yes, I'm hypnotized. Because again, if you go back to the idea of the movie, some movies are very peaceful. Some movies are adventurous and exciting. Some movies are more like a love story, and they're more about connection and feeling those kinds of emotions. And of course, some movies are kind of scary, but we won't talk about that in hypnosis. But really, so you can be hypnotized and you can be feeling very peaceful, very relaxed, which almost everybody says that they feel that. And other times we want to build that confidence, we want to build that excitement, we want to build those things in. So again, there is no particular feeling to hypnosis. What you may experience when you're in the hypnosis chair is you may experience a profound feeling of relaxation. You may discover instead a light floating sensation, kind of like you're disconnected a bit from your body. Or you may just feel like you're sitting in the chair hearing those suggestions, and all of those are great ways to experience hypnosis, and all will get you results. Whatever you're feeling in that moment is what you're supposed to be feeling. Now, sometimes people think that hypnosis is some sort of loss of control. Now, I can't force you to do anything that you wouldn't otherwise want to do. Now, in my office, I say, look, if I could do that, I would hypnotize you and say, go steal me, a Tesla and park it in the parking lot out back and give me the keys. And I always point out and say, there's no Teslas in the parking lot out back. And really, so this isn't me forcing you to do something. This is us working together to get you to your goal and giving you the suggestions that move you in that direction. So instead of, again, that loss of control, it's actually regaining control of this one area of your life which you're coming in to resolve. So really think about, in terms of control, it's taking back that control of your life. Again, it's that bypassing of the critical factor of the mind. It's a natural state of mind. And then one of the things that we do in the office, and we can do it a little bit if you're doing hypnosis at home, but really in the office, is there's those moments where we do what's called hypnotic phenomenon, which is there are times when I will give you a suggestion that you respond to physically in some way. It might be something like your eyelids are so relaxed that you can't open them, even though you know full well you could if you needed to. And that moment, I'll tell you, that's the first time when I was hypnotized that I'm like, wow, something's really happening, because I could open my eyes, but I don't want to. And it actually feels nice to know that I'm following along and I'm relaxing into that process. Sometimes it may be something as simple as when XYZ happens, lift a finger. And that lets me and lets really us both know that you're following along with those suggestions, that also you're following along with the other suggestion I'm giving you to get your result. And so just recognize these are things that we layer into the process to let you know that you're following along, you're going to get the result, because again, you're responding. And we can see from your unconscious mind that it's responding again when XYZ happens, lift a finger. We can both recognize that that is happening. And some of those moments might just be something like when XYZ happens, I may tap the back of your hand just as a reminder of something. So I always ask permission for that, but of course let me know if there's any challenges with that, and we can work around it. So we do these kind of convincers that let you know that something is happening. Now, sometimes people say all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, and in some ways, I will say that that's definitely true, because the reality is, again, that's not something I'm going to do to exert any kind of control. It's really that you're going along with the suggestions because they're leading you towards your outcome. And so really it's that we're in this together. It's not something I'm doing to you. It's something that we are doing together. I'm giving you suggestions. You're responding. When you respond to the suggestions, you get the results. The other thing to be aware of is hypnosis can be a learned skill. So the more you go into hypnosis, the deeper you can go, the faster you can go. And there's these myths about depths of hypnosis, and people can get all sorts of changes no matter what level of trance they go into. So just get a little sense of this here. And this is going to be real simple. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and then close your eyes and then open them right back up again. And this will be just a real simple demonstration. So go ahead and right now take a nice deep breath in. And as you exhale, just close your eyes. And then when you're ready to take the next breath in, you can open your eyes and come back and see me on the screen, hear me again. And just notice what happened is I gave you a simple suggestion and you follow along the suggestion, you got a result. And often when people do that, they might feel just even the smallest sense of relaxation. Now, of course, in a formal hypnosis session, that would be just the very start of it. But notice it's as simple as I give you an instruction, you follow along. And when you come into the office, we will do more to build on that, to just make sure that you recognize that by the end of that first session, there'll be no doubt that you were hypnotized because you will have followed along with, again, all sorts of these other things that we've responded to physically. So when you are in the office, I will be guiding you through hypnosis. I'll be watching your responses, and that allows me to layer in different suggestions, different procedures, different processes. And so that's why often working in the office is much more effective than somebody that just goes and gets a hypnosis program online, is because, again, it's something that we're doing together, and in real time I'm adjusting what I'm suggesting to you based on how you're responding. And so now I also often assign hypnosis for home use, self-hypnosis for reinforcement. And again, once you've been in the office and you've had the experience, that'll make a lot of sense, and it will feel very familiar. And even if you're not coming into the office, if you're just doing self-hypnosis at home, that having gone through this video will help explain how it's going to work. And so for self-hypnosis, I'll answer just a couple of common questions here, and then we'll wrap up. So the first one that people ask when I assign them some self-hypnosis is, when should I do it? And the easiest answer is, do it when it works for you. Some people like to do it first thing in the morning. They wake up, they make it part of their morning routine. Sometimes people like to do it as a nice break during the day, when they would otherwise be reaching for that cigarette or that food or something else, to maybe go out in their car, go into a quiet room or someplace like that, and just relax back and get the benefit of the self-hypnosis. And sometimes people, they find that they get very sleepy at the end of the hypnosis, that they like to do it last thing to do before they go to bed. So I just suggest, download it to your phone, put the earbuds in, and then basically when you're done with the hypnosis, just pull them out and go to sleep. So it's really up to you, when you do it. It's probably best, since hypnosis is not sleep, to do it sitting up comfortably in a chair. You can do it lying down as long as you don't fall asleep. If you do fall asleep, that's fine. You will wake up, and then you'll have the benefit of the suggestions that kind of got into your unconscious mind anyway. But if you do find you're falling asleep a lot, then you may want to adjust, making sure you're sitting up a little bit more. So those are just a couple little tips for how you do it. And then some people like to assign, some hypnotists do these hour-long things, which I think not a lot of people have time for that, so I try to keep mine down to about 10 to 20 minutes in terms of self-hypnosis. So it's something that most people can fit into their day. And again, make it maybe that nice little break when in the past you might have done some kind of activity that was probably moving you further from your goal, that now you can do the self-hypnosis and, instead of that old behavior that wasn't working before. So, I look forward to working with you and helping you with hypnosis. And if you have any questions before I hypnotize you, just bring them up when you're in the office. And I look forward to you getting a result. I'm Dan Ross again from Silicon Valley Hypnosis Center, and I'll see you on the next video, or see you soon in the office.